Got a Skiff Drifter. Wanted to get my hands on one of these for a long time. It is freaking gorgeous. It's got some of the best texturing, milling on the scales I've ever felt. Just a gorgeous blade. It is not marked. There is no COA, but from all intents and purposes, everything that I've seen and looked at outside of a custom, this is more than likely CPM 154, so that's what I'm going to stick with. Or 154 CM, however you want to word it or call it. Weight, ergos, action. This thing's awesome. Obviously, Skiff is famous for, you know, their smooth bearings and washers. Put this guy on the scale. .41. So even though I got new batteries for it, I don't know why it's not coming up on camera. I'm not going to waste my time talking about it. Blade stock thickness. Got 0.15. What, 3.8 millimeters? .7, 3.8. And putting it against the ruler. Got probably right at 7.5. It's a little less than, it's probably a 3¼ inch blade, a touch over 3 inches of cutting edge. Here it is compared to a Koning Arius. I love them together. They just look so dope. They're very similar in the sense that they're both textured tie, blue accents. They're both made in America, both above 500, under 1,000. So they're in the same ballpark. I will say, this is already pretty light enough. I guess the scales are thin enough because this is not milled in the inside like the Arius is. But I gotta say, this is some of the best texturing I've ever felt. It gives good texture, it gives good grip, but it's also not, it's not rough, it's not sharp. I've gotten some cheap knives in the past that looked great and they even felt great, but that texture introduced hot spots, or it was almost too sharp. One thing I want to point out, I find a little interesting. It's not that interesting. It's not like I haven't had a knife that had no jimping anywhere at all, but this does not. There's no jimping anywhere. Not on the spine of the blade, not on the flipper tab itself, not on the back over here by the standoffs. This flipper action is really great. It is a flipper only. Me personally, I would love something that's either studs, a hole, or at least multiple options. That does not mean I'm knocking the knife because of it. It is what it is. It's a flipper. The quality control, the craftsmanship, the tolerances for this thing is just second to none. When I showed somebody that I was reviewing this, they straight up said it's the best production knife made. I'm not positive I'm going to go that far, but I also realize how and why somebody could possibly go there and say that. That's how good it is. It is thin without being too stupid. The blade seems like it would be super freaking slicey. For me, there's only one thing that stands out. Here, let me go ahead and do this too. There's no wiggle room going on here. So the blade's locked up great. Centering is pretty much on and slightly to the show side. The pivot just might need to be tightened up because it's slightly shifting when I'm pushing it to the side, but it doesn't seem lock related, so I think it just needs to the pivot to be slightly tightened. The one thing for me that I'm not in love with is the clip. I'm not one of these clip queens. Like my BT team has a couple of guys that just hate on shit because of the clip itself. Now, I can and would if functionality it is horrible. This functions fine. It's a clip. But how long it is, especially with how small the knife is kind of crazy. It's more than 50% of the scale. And since it is a flipper, since obviously we all already know you can't be putting pressure on the frame lock, yada yada, I'm not saying it's impossible to do it or that it makes it horrible, but for me in my hands, I almost feel like I'm having to play with where I put my other finger more than I should have because the length of the clip. Like I'm literally putting it up here versus on virtually all other flippers that I have where I'm actually just putting a finger on the clip itself. Since it's so high up there, it's just kind of forcing me to put my finger up there versus on top of it. It's kind of hard to explain because every time I try to do it, I'm not saying I can't do it where it's on top. It just feels weird to do so. But that might just be my hands. I've also had this knife for about a week or two. I've had this knife for about 2 weeks. I haven't carried it because it's not my knife, but I really enjoy having the knife, having knives to review at least 1 or 2 weeks to be able to play with it enough. Or if something screams at me, hey, I don't like this, or there's a hot spot, or whatever the case may be, I like having the knife a week or two versus getting a knife, playing with it for 1 day, and then trying to make a review, because it's not really a review, it's like an overview, you know? So, pocketing it at the house, playing with it multiple times, multiple days for 2 weeks, I mean, it's a lot different. So, Billy, I really appreciate this. Jay, I really appreciate the areas. I apologize. I've had them probably a little longer than you were anticipating. Jay told me to keep it, play with it, carry it. And, you know, there's been some drama with some other shit going on. Y'all probably know about that. So I ended up having this a little longer than I anticipated. I'm going to get these damn videos done, and I am going to get these shipped back out in the next, if I don't tomorrow, it'll be on Monday. So obviously I'll reach out to you guys. Anyway, I love this thing. I can honestly see why someone would have told me it's actually the best production knife.